Support for this podcast comes from the Utah Office of Tourism, announcing the Four Corners School's Canyon Country Discovery Center, offering hands-on exhibits, educational tours, and a variety of field-based hiking and rafting adventures. From day trips to week-long adventures throughout the Colorado Plateau, nearby attractions include Canyonlands National Park, Hovenweep National Monument, Natural Bridges National Monument, Monument Valley Tribal Park, and Cedar Mesa. fourcornerschool.org.
Blog Talk Radio.
Guide to an astounding future that lies ahead, one that will be here sooner than you think, and one that you have an important role to play in bringing about. At the World Transformed, we want to introduce you to what may be the greatest transformation of them all, the one that begins with considering and acting on the almost limitless possibilities that lie ahead, and that ends somewhere beyond the reach of the human imagination. So, when does this amazing future begin? Well, today is the day. My name is Phil Bowermaster, and with me in the virtual studio is my co-blogger, co-futurist, and co-host, Stephen Gordon. Hello, Stephen.
Hey, Phil. How are you?
Well, I'm super fantastic. How are you, my friend?
Oh, I'm doing great. Looking forward to an awesome show tonight.
Well, we've got a fun one, I think, tonight. You know, we talk frequently on this program about the human imperative. And the human imperative, for those just joining us, is this odd set of drives, this odd compulsion that humanity seems to have to try to make things good, actually to try to make things better and to get better at getting better over time. Seems to be kind of a driver behind an awful lot of what we see happening in the world today. But tonight we're going to talk about another imperative. I'm going to say, Stephen, perhaps a lesser imperative than the human imperative, but still an important one, and that is the hoverboard imperative. And what I mean by that is this interesting phenomenon where some technologies sort of get a hold of our imagination. They sort of get into our heads, and they find a way to become invented. And we'll talk a little bit about how that's potentially happening with the hoverboard. We'll see how real that really is, and then we'll talk about some other technologies and kind of compare it on the hoverboard scale, whether some of these other technologies have the same kind of drive for people to bring them into being as the hoverboard does. But I guess before we talk about any of that, we have to explain what a hoverboard is. Stephen, are you familiar with the concept?
You know, it's passed through my head a couple of times. I'm going to tell you, it's one of those things. You know, of course, it's Back to the Future too, and
right. Yes.
You know, I believe that movie came out probably about 1990, something like that. It was
1985. Oh, you're right.
Well,
Back to the Future 2 came out a few years later. You're right.
Yeah.
Excuse me. Yes.
And
that would have been 2 or 3 years later.
Yeah, it might have been 89 when the second one came out, and then 90 when the third one came out. They filmed the second and the third one together. Trivia, you know, this little trivia deal. That's the first time they ever did multiple sequels at the same time like that. And
very clever.
They've learned that, hey, you know, for the you almost get two movies for the price of one that way.
Economies of scale. Yeah.
Yeah.
Peter Jackson filmed all 3 Lord of the Rings movies that way, right? And I guess he did The Hobbit that way too. Yeah.
I think so. And so, anyway, yeah, that's and that was one of the first times they did that. But yes, the vision of the future, although almost cartoonish in a way, was a whole heck of a lot of fun. I mean, they showed us things like the hoverboard, of course, but also, you know, the flying cars and the self-lacing shoes and and everything. And it was a fun future. They showed Doc getting rejuvenation therapy so that he didn't, he was no longer 70 years old. He was young again.
I don't recall that.
I
don't remember that in that movie. Is that right? Doc gets made younger.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that's right. You see, so basically, when he went to the future, he got this rejuvenation therapy, and so that's why he looked like he was 50 again instead of 70 when he, for the third movie, And,
wow.
And so that's that was the part of what they showed in the future. And they showed like teen, this time it's in hologram, so,
right.
And what else, Phil? I mean, there was lots of things in it, but I don't think anything got our attention quite the way that the hoverboards did. I mean, the subway
there were little variations on the hoverboard, but it was all the same stuff, right? Doc's flying car, or like there's a scene where Marty's parents show up and to hide the fact that it's not Crispin Glover playing the part, they've got Marty's dad upside down and floating around upside down in this suspension thing that he's in. But it was the same basic hoverboard technology going on there that really happened. Everything else was kind of cool, but I think didn't quite grab us in the same way. And it's interesting because arguably the flying car is as cool a thing as the hoverboard, and we see that one even in the previous movie, right? We see that one at the very end of the first Back to the Future, and the Mr. Fusion, of course, the device that Doc is using to power his flying car and / time machine. This desktop fusion device that looks kind of like a Mr. Coffee, I guess, and kind of like a very small garbage disposal, right? And you just put stuff in it, and then you got all the energy you need, which if we could have any technology from Back to the Future 2 or Back to the Future in 2015, that would really be the one to pick, wouldn't it?
Yeah, I think for that you get everything. I mean, I think that ultimately anti-gravity is going to be one of those tough nuts to crack. Okay, but so why is it that we're talking specifically about hoverboards tonight? Well, there's actually one that's on. It's not Indiegogo.
It's on Kickstarter.
Kickstarter. Thank you. I was having a mental block there. There's a Kickstarter for a hoverboard, and
the company is called Hendo Hoverboards, the world's first all caps real hoverboard, and we've got the link there at blogtalkradio.com and also over at worldtransform.com. Watch the video, see this thing in action, and I think they're using magnets. Is that right?
Oh yeah, and it's a magnet, and the things that they don't tell you in the video that I've read elsewhere from people that have actually gotten to see and maybe even demo this technology is that it's as loud as you can. It's just amazingly loud. Of course in the video they don't. It's like it sounds like an industrial. It's extremely loud, and it only lasts like 30 seconds or so. And
it's the old jetpack conundrum, huh?
Yeah, that's a bit of a problem.
It's a lot of cool in a very short dose, right?
Exactly. You get the feel of what it would be to have a hoverboard, and you get to hover for about 30 seconds or so for the cool price of $10,000 per board. But of course, and here's the other thing: you can only do it over a sheet of non-ferrous metal. You have to. The magnet has to have something to push against, and so you get. So
in the movie where we see Marty, he's hovering over the ground, he's hovering over the street, he's hovering over a pond at one point, I think, right? None of that would work.
None of that would work with this. I got to thinking to myself, well, if they wanted to make this cool to where it would go anywhere, why not, have that sheet of metal on a skateboard underneath you, so you could hover anywhere, right? I mean, you'd have to take your metal with you. But I don't know. You still would only have 30 seconds. Battery is a big, huge issue with this. So
30 seconds. How far are you going to get on your skateboard, right?
Not far.
And also, wouldn't the metal somehow have to be attached to the? You know what I'm saying? It's like what's propelling the skateboard at that point? You're just going to hover right over the skateboard.
Well, I think you could create a magnetic sinkhole basically where you wouldn't fall off of the skateboard that you're hovering over. I think that could easily be done. But you're you're down to the 30 seconds. So if they could solve the battery issue and then put your piece of metal on a skateboard underneath you, I think you could have something akin to a Marty McFly experience. But anyway, it's I think it's cool that they're doing it, and it's a fun thing.
Well, here's what I can tell you. Read this right off the page here. You know, with 45 days to go, Hendo Hoverboards has more than 2,300 backers, and they've raised more than $400,000. So people like the idea.
Interest.
I mean,
there is interest. Yes. And here's the thing. You know, ultimately they expect to sell some hoverboards, but that's not really what they're wanting to do with this. They see this they see this as a technology that could be perfected to to transport things in a warehouse. They see it as more of a commercial technology that they could use to maybe move large loads or something like that. You could have a hover dolly or something, you know. I think that's pretty cool. If you could use this technology in other ways. Magnets are always cool. You know, to me, I've been fascinated with them since I was a little kid, and so
there's something almost magical about magnets.
Absolutely, absolutely.
It's just so weird. How does it make you don't see it, but it's doing something, and that's just cool. And when you take that and you add a skateboard to it, come on. I mean, what's not to love?
What kid age 4 to 400 wouldn't love that? You know, I mean, it's pretty great. So
exactly. So let's talk about this a little bit. I want to explore this a little further though. Why is there $400,000 raised for hoverboards, but there's not $400,000 raised for, say, Mr. Fusion? Now, there is definitely progress occurring towards Fusion, or at least work going on around Fusion, and some interesting developments, as we've talked about in recent weeks. But somehow hoverboards have gotten into people's heads in the way that some of those other technologies have. And in fact, here was the one that occurred to me. You look at Back to the Future 2, whenever it came out, you 87, 88, somebody should actually do the trouble and look it up. But, roughly 25, 26 years ago, a few years before that, in 1983, there was a little movie, you may have heard of it, called Return of the Jedi, okay? And
a little art house film.
Yeah. Yeah, it's obscure. It had kind of a limited release, but I saw it about 8 times, I think. Remember the flying motorcycles in Return of the Jedi?
Yeah.
Because I remember seeing that in 1983 and thinking, that is the coolest idea ever, okay? And I have to say that by the time I saw hoverboards, to me it was just kind of a faint callback to those flying motorcycles in Return of the Jedi. And yet, for some reason, the idea of hoverboards, I think, really caught on with people. I mean, not that people don't think that those flying motorcycles in Return of the Jedi are cool, but you never hear anybody say, hey, dude, where's my flying motorcycle, right? What's the difference between the hoverboard and the flying motorcycle such that people have an expectation that they're going to get a hoverboard versus there's no expectation that we'll ever get the flying motorcycle?
It might go all the way back to the release of the movie. You may recall, Phil, that about the time they were promoting Back to the Future 2, the director, was asked about the hoverboards. How'd you do that? He says, "Oh, well, they're real." Of course, it was a big joke. He was,
right.
He was spoofing himself or pulling a joke on the entire world. And of course,
right.
There's a sizable group of people that believe that. Okay, and so where's Mama Tell's hoverboard? And so I think that kind of was the germ of, okay, and when they learned that, it's not really real, he was messing with us. Oh, okay, well, and so I think that there's, we finally get what we were promised. That's there might be a little bit of that going on here. So
yeah, well, some people probably never learned that, right? That it was really, or it just created this kind of suspicion or this sense that maybe somebody's sitting on a stockpile of them somewhere, and like OSHA or somebody won't let them be released. I can imagine.
Yeah, it's like the sonic washing machines we keep hearing about that don't require detergent, that the detergent companies have bought up, supposedly.
Right.
And,
I imagine if we listen coast to coast regularly, they'd probably talk about the hoverboard on there and how
they probably would. They're keeping them in Area 51 in the same warehouse with the Ark of the Covenant.
Well, because the technology that they used actually came from Area 51. Come to think of it.
That's right.
It turned into Tales of the Paranormal.
Aliens.
We slid right into it. I don't know how that happened. Okay, so there's that, and I think that what you said is true. I hadn't realized that, or I had forgotten about that there was this whole flap that had occurred around people believing that those things were real. I think the other difference might be that the sheer kind of hipness and coolness of a skateboard aside, we were given a date, right? For the hoverboard, right?
Yeah.
It's like they went to 2015 and there was the hoverboard, right? So it was like it was totally cool and it had a date attached to it, as opposed to say flying motorcycles in Return of the Jedi, which were a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away, and they didn't even belong to the good guys, right? They belonged to the bad guys. So I mean, they're like a couple layers of removed from us being able to expect them. But even in a fictional sense, we were shown a year, right? It's like you get in the DeLorean, you set the year for 2015, boom, and you arrive in the land of the hoverboard. And I wonder if maybe that kind of specificity of the prediction didn't help sort of put people into a frame of mind of demanding that they get their hoverboard.
It could be, and it's funny that Hendo would go to the trouble of trying to produce something like this just as this year is upon us. It's almost like, okay, well, we got to do it now. I mean, come on, it's 2015.
Yeah, it's due. Exactly. Yes.
It seems to me that there's still a couple of there's lower hanging fruit. I mean, where's my self-lacing Nikes? I mean, that's easy. Put a little battery in a Nike, and boom, we're done. A little motor and little battery, and you got yourself lacing Nikes. Then that would be easy, and
that would be easy. And you'd like that? I don't know how much market demand there really is for that, but you would like it, don't you? I mean, in some ways, the Velcro shoes and the just kind of expandable shoes have maybe covered that market. I don't know. I think the self-lacing doesn't quite have the same pizzazz, right, as the hoverboard. But I want to compare this to two others that I mentioned in the show notes, because I think there's an interesting kind of continuum around these kinds of technologies. And one of them, the obvious, the grandfather of them all, is the flying car. And Stephen, I don't know if you've had a chance to take a look at this video of the new flying car that I included in the notes for tonight's show.
I have not, but I did read the story, and so yeah. So tell us about the video. I've not seen the video. I read the story. This was in, where was it? Czechoslovakia or where was it?
It's in Austria, as a matter of fact.
Yeah, Austria. Okay.
And latest prototype of flying car has been drawing crowds at the Pioneers Festival in Vienna. The vehicle may be on sale as early as 2017. Aeromobile inventor and designer Stefan Klein says, "We don't want to make a flying car or a road aircraft. We would like to make a new category. And this category is the same as a motorbike or car. We want to open a new vehicle which has the capability to be on the road as a non-handicapped car and in air as a non-handicapped aircraft, but is necessary to open an absolutely new category." And if you look at the thing in operation, let me make two comments about this vehicle. Okay. First, it's beautiful. You look at it and you go, "Oh, that is sweet," and I would love to have one of those. That's my first observation. My second observation, and this is I think almost always the case with these, it's an airplane. Okay. It's not a flying car. It's an airplane you can drive, right?
Right.
Which,
A roadable plane is what they sometimes refer to that.
Which we've seen before. Okay, it's like, okay, the wings come in, the wings go out, but even when it's all retracted and everything, it really looks more like an airplane than it does an automobile. Right. And I have a feeling, just from a performance standpoint, from a gas mileage standpoint, from just about any measure, you would look at it and say, no, I'm sorry, Stefan, you guys have not created a new category. What you've done is you've made a roadworthy airplane. I think you described it exactly right there, Stephen. And I think that's always been the problem with the flying car is every time we get one, it's really an airplane, right? And you'd have to be a pilot to fly one, usually. I mean, generally speaking, whenever anybody introduces something that they call a flying car, it's something that you would have to be a pilot in order to fly, right?
Absolutely. And so what you really want, obviously, is a vehicle that is more push button, really. Basically, you want a vehicle that can take off vertically would be nice, right? So you could you don't even need a long runway, and it's anti-grav rather than some sort of a normal aviation technology. That's the dream. We keep dreaming of the vehicles that you see in Blade Runner, and we keep reinventing the roadable airplane, which is okay. Let me tell you a solution that a member of my family is adopting. I've got a brother who is flying.
Wait, I'm sorry. A member of your family has adopted a solution to the flying car problem?
Yes.
Oh,
and
please tell this.
It's a little more. It's a little more down to earth than the new roadable cars that they're offering out in Europe. He's just soloed in a 182 for the first time, and he's working towards his pilot's license. But here's the deal. He is purchasing a kit that goes underneath the aircraft. Okay, it looks like a cargo hold that would go underneath the aircraft, and it's lowered and raised with a cordless drill. So you put the cordless drill into like a socket, and you can lower it to the ground, and then you can raise it back up. And that's important because what you put in that cargo hold is kind of heavy. It's a motorcycle.
Oh, right.
And so this motorcycle is made. It's a special made motorcycle. It's lighter than the typical roadworthy motorcycle. It's also made to where when you lay it flat on its side, you can remove the handlebars easily, so it can lay flat better. And also, it doesn't leak. It doesn't leak gasoline. Its plumbing is specially made, so it doesn't do that. So you put it into this cargo hold, and you put the cordless drill in there, and you raise it up to the belly of the aircraft and lock it into place with a couple of pins, and you take off. And then when you get to your destination, you ride the motorcycle to wherever it is you need to go. So it's sort of it's the solution to the problem of I can fly anywhere in the country I want, but then I'm stuck at the airport problem. And that's a big problem because 90% of the public airstrips in this country that would that you could land a Cessna at, there's no tower, there's certainly no rent car company, there's nothing. I mean, you're just you fly in, and so this it opens up a lot of opportunities to explore the ground when you get to wherever it is that you want to go. So I thought it was it's an interesting.
That's a brilliant idea.
Problem.
Absolutely brilliant idea. It's not a flying car. It doesn't pretend to be a flying car, but it addresses some of
the same problem.
If you do a Venn diagram, there's a chunk of the whole flying car problem space that this solves, right? I mean, it does. It takes on part of it. Well, I like that idea, but certainly gets us no closer to the flying car. Gets us no closer to Doc Brown and his flying DeLorean, or as you said, Blade Runner. Yeah, or even the later we saw flying cars in Star Wars in the second trilogy, buzzing around the capital city there, whatever it's called. There's people in all these flying cars. So we've seen them in a lot of different contexts. But here's where I think the difference might be. People do say, "Dude, I want my flying car." We've said it many times ourselves. "Dude, where's my flying car?" etc. But I think there's no date-driven expectation of a flying car the way there is a hoverboard. That would be my differentiator between the two. Where did we see flying cars? Blade Runner. What year is that set? Don't know, right? The Jetsons. What year is that set? Don't know, right? It's like, well, if you don't have a talking robot yet, you probably don't have a flying car yet. That's all I know. If your car can't fold up in a briefcase either, right? We're still not there. So there was no expectation. So I think that the expectation that it would happen helped push both. I shouldn't say there's no expectation. There was no date, because in both cases there's kind of this expectation and a sense of entitlement, right, that we all have to these technologies, right? When do I get my flying car, and when do I get my hoverboard? Now I want to contrast that with yet another technology that is sort of in the same vein, a little bit different, but that is the ambulance drone. And I don't know if you had a chance, Stephen, to take a look at this story.
Absolutely.
But this is
cool. This is very cool. And this is the same sort of stuff that we keep hearing about with groups like Amazon wanting to use to deliver small packages. Quadcopters is basically what we're talking about, right?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
Pretty much.
The word drone now applies to what a few years ago we called quadcopters, but
right. This is certainly a more beautiful version of it. This what we're looking at here in this article is much sleeker and looks like it would fly pretty darn fast. Well, how fast were they talking about? Something like 60 miles per hour.
60 miles an hour, 100 kilometers an hour. Absolutely, yeah. So, the point is, it goes as the crow flies. So
right.
What's it carry? A defibrillator. So if you've got someone having cardiac arrest, this thing can get to them a lot faster, chances are, than an ambulance with a paramedic in it. Now, as I read the article, it sounds like you still need... Go ahead.
But a defibrillator is simple technology. If there's somebody there calling 911 and they say, okay, the ambulance drone is on its way and the regular ambulance is right behind it another 5-10 minutes. When the ambulance drone gets there, follow the diagram and the drone will do the rest. And I mean, it could literally, you take the little pads and put it on the chest of the person that's having the heart thing. Then the drone will decide if a shock is necessary, and will deliver one if necessary. And it probably will say, "And step back, sir," so that you don't get shocked also along with the person who's down. And then about the time that the person's life is saved by this drone, a few minutes later the EMTs are showing up, right, with the regular ambulance. So
absolutely,
I think it's a fantastic idea. I think it works best. Something like this works best in a densely populated area where you could have one of these drones on every rooftop, in a place like Manhattan. And the drone could be there in 30 seconds in most places if that was the situation. So
many public buildings,
cool.
Especially places that have recreational equipment or exercise equipment or something like that, but a lot of just public buildings have these. It's like there's the different. Time was there. Behind a glass case there'd be a fire extinguisher. Well, we still have those. But also, once in a while, you see, there's the defib, right? In case somebody's having a heart attack, we can just reach in there and do what we need to do. Now, around here in Colorado, anyway, those are always labeled. This is only for somebody who knows what they're doing.
Right.
But if you're talking about the minutes between help arriving and someone lying there in cardiac arrest, I think your point's well made. That provide a diagram and let's let the drone do it, right? Let's take a shot at getting this thing done, because the downside,
pretty much. Well, the Philips
for waiting is not good.
Not good. The Philips defibrillator is one that probably they've sold more of than any brand, and it's super simple. I mean, it's like basically you put the pads on each side of the person's chest, and if the green button lights up, that's telling you that, yes, they do need the shock. Push the green button, and it delivers the shock. It's that simple. And so I could see that being built into the drone to make it simple for the person who's standing there with their cell phone talking to 911 still probably. So, the 911 operator could kind of walk them through it. But, I mean, it's, as simple as putting the pads on them and then the machine deciding if the shock is needed and delivering it if so. And so that's and you talk about lifesaver because minutes count. it's if someone if you can deliver the shock within 5-10 minutes of the heart attack starting, the survival rate goes from like 12%, 15% up to 80%.
Something like that.
So
I mean, you're really talking about a critical few minutes there. And it's in a different context. Glenn Reynolds is always saying, when seconds count, they're minutes away, right? And it's no disparagement of EMTs. It's just the physical infrastructure. It's just the reality, right? It takes a while to get an ambulance to somebody, and this could get to somebody a lot quicker than an ambulance could. And what a brilliant application of the technology! Because when you think about things like you were talking about Amazon shipping, I mean those are beautiful ideas, and I love them, and I can't wait until a little quadcopter shows up at my house with my toothbrush or whatever. But the idea of, well, here it is. Here's this thing that can go anywhere, and it can hold a payload of about this big. And hey, you know what? These things are about that size. Just a brilliant mashup of two good ideas that go so well together. And here's where I'm going with this one. Okay, let's lay this one out on a continuum with the hoverboard and the flying car. Like I said, flying car, everybody wants one. We didn't have a date, so it's kind of open-ended. Hoverboard, we want one, and it has a date, so that's why I think we've got the Kickstarter going, and this one. This one, the drone ambulance, nobody sees this coming, right? I mean, by and large, people have not been sitting around saying, "Dude, where's my drone ambulance?" Have they?
Yeah, and it's just one of those things that, and that's what you get though when technology is improving. You don't just get what you foresee. That's the problem with most of our sci-fi is that the future is just like right now, except for with one different thing.
One little different thing, yeah.
One little different. Well, it might be a huge different thing, but it's one thing. Everything else is exactly the same except for this one thing, and I guess it's it's efficiency in storytelling, and also maybe a deficiency in imagination. But that you only have one.
You might say
only have time to deal with the
also.
issues associated with one thing. So,
right.
Maybe that's a big issue with it. But that's not what you get. When technologies are improving constantly, you get them. You get these ideas having sex and having little baby ideas like the ambulance drone. I mean, that's what happens, and so that's cool. That when things just come out of the blue and you go, oh well, why didn't I think of that?
They just pop up and you go, you know what? This is an even better idea than the one I thought I was entitled to. Right? I mean, this is awesome. This is a fantastic idea, and it speaks to how many more, as you say, wonderful ideas are just waiting to pop up because we've got so many kind of wheels in motion. We've got so many balls in the air, or let me use yet another cliche, or mix my metaphor somehow. But the point is, there are so many potential areas from which solutions can come, and there's so many different ways that those can combine that there's just a lot of these great ideas yet to be thought up. So here's what I thought would be fun. Okay, so we've got this continuum now. Here it is. We've got ideas that we have, we'll call a weak expectation for, like the flying car. Ideas that we have a strong expectation for, like the hoverboard, where in that case it was a date that was set that I think made it a strong expectation. And then we've got ideas that we have no expectation for whatsoever. And I've got this story out of Australia Yahoo called 9 Real Technologies That Will Soon Be Inside You. So we're shifting gears just slightly because we're talking about technologies embedded inside human beings, so cyborg type technologies. And what I thought we would do, Stephen, is let's take a look at each one of these 9 and talk about, just give our own reaction to each of them, and then say where on that continuum we think each of these lies. Okay? Whether it's something that we have a weak expectation for, or a strong expectation for, or no expectation for whatsoever. And I'll begin with number 1, the implantable smartphone. Okay? So the idea is exactly what it sounds like. Basically, forget the wearable, right? Forget the Apple Watch. We're talking, we're talking about taking that smartphone and putting it into your body, right? Right down to perhaps having a display that is showing up on artificial skin that is grafted on top of your own skin, or potentially down the road, maybe even a technology that's going to feed visual input right into your optic nerve. So the fully embedded smartphone, the smartphone that is actually in your body. What do you think, Stephen? Is that a plausible coming technology, and where would you put it on our spectrum?
I would say it's almost certain to happen, but not very soon.
Mm-hmm.
I would say that it's quite plausible, but probably, I don't know. Maybe a decade away for those who need a brain implant for other reasons, and that comes along for the ride, and maybe 2 or 3 decades away for people who do it electively. So,
right.
But yeah, it's I would say absolutely it's very plausible.
I think it's plausible too. I think that there's no big expectation for it right now. Even when Apple.
So we need to differentiate between plausible versus expectation.
No, I'm going to talk about both. I think both are important.
Okay.
Right? That's the thing. Because the ambulance drone, if you'd mentioned it to me 10 years ago, would have been perfectly plausible, but I would have had no expectation of it. Right. So I think we're kind of creating one of those 2-axis tables here in
right.
plotting these things, because we got 2 axes we're looking at is how plausible is it, and then how much expectation do people have of it. And I would say this one lies in the very interesting quadrant where I think it's quite plausible that we will have them, but nobody's working on it that I know of. And even when you see something like the Apple Watch, there's this kind of I would say mixed response, right? Some
right.
great enthusiasm, some skepticism, and some kind of lukewarm people in the middle. And that's not even embedding it in a person, right? That's just like taking the smartphone and moving it a little bit and attaching it to your body. So I don't think that people are expecting it to happen. Although I think that embedding versus attaching to the wrist or attaching to any other particular part of the body will probably make this idea more viable than, say, a watch.
Right.
Ultimately, ultimately we'll go, oh yeah, now I have one because you just stick it in your head, right?
and these things
but before you had to wear it on your wrist. Yeah.
Yeah. And for something like this to be worthwhile, of course, it would need to be powered the same way your body is. It would would need to take the same blood sugar that your body runs off of and power itself the same way.
Absolutely.
Otherwise, you can't. You're not. What are you going to do? Get next to a plug and plug something into a port behind your ear? It's
got to run off body power somehow. Yeah, for sure.
It's going to have to run off body power. At the most primitive, that would be off the motion of your body. It would charge the way a self-winding watch does. But no, I think I have a greater expectation that. Not that, but it will probably run off the same energy your body does. We have to develop our implantable devices need to learn to run off the same blood sugar that the rest of your body runs off of, and that'll be a big thing for everything that we put into us. As far as devices.
Well, let's look at this next one. In fact, here's another one that will need to run off the things that are in our body. But here we're talking about the healing chips. And it says, right now, patients are using cyber implants that tie directly to smartphone apps to monitor and treat diseases. That's all very well. But scientists in London are developing swallowable capsule-sized circuits that monitor fat levels in obese patients and generate genetic material that makes them feel full. It has potential as an alternative to current surgery or other invasive ways to handle gross obesity. So there's dozens of these kinds of medical issues that people have. And they talk about heart murmurs, anxiety, that like an implant such as this could potentially address. Put a chip in the body and start giving it the right feedback or start sending it the right signals, and you can address a host of these different issues. I will go ahead and say that from a plausibility standpoint, this is 100% plausible. In fact, the fact that it's already being done.
It's already being done. As far as, and I would say as far as the expectation for it, I think that there's probably a larger expectation for something like this than in the implantable cell phone. But people aren't clamoring for it though. I suppose there's a group of the quantified self people that wear the Fitbits and they want to know everything about their body that they can. I think those guys and ladies would love this kind of technology. If you could pop a pill that somehow interfaces with your smartphone to tell you what's going on, and at the very moment that it would be ideal to eat a carb or to take a macronutrient or whatever, you do it so as to optimize your feeling of your well-being and your health. I think that a lot of people that are already experimenting with quantified self would jump on this bandwagon, and then as they started having success with it, I think the larger public will adopt it after those guys.
I think so. Yeah. I think the problem with the quantified self movement right now, as it exists right now, not that it's a problem, but the factor of it, the feature of it that probably keeps it from being adopted in a more widespread way is that there's a lot of numbers to keep track of, right? You have to be pretty smart to be a quantified self person. You kind of want it to be more like red light, green light kind of stuff going on. Yeah, you want a little buzzer to go off when things aren't right, and then you correct it, rather than having to know exactly what your oxygen saturation level is or something like that. I mean, not that those numbers aren't important. Obviously, they're really important. But I think most people are not going to be intellectually up to the challenge of tracking all that stuff. So,
if
you want something a little more automated.
Yeah, wouldn't it be awesome if these things, as it made its way through your digestive tract, it was able to say, you know what, here's what you need to have for lunch. This would be the ideal meal for you today, based on what we're what we're seeing going on right now in your body, and sometimes you would ignore it, but when on those days that you didn't ignore it, you'd feel better for it. It's sometimes we are bad to our bodies because we feel the lure of the German chocolate cake, right? But other times we're bad to our bodies because we just don't have a clue what would be ideal. And so this, something like that would be helpful. It'd be better than a fitness coach. It would know you better than the best doctor because it's taking readings from inside you. So
now here's what I think would push this one into the hoverboard category. Okay. If this thing about making you feel full, this particular application, if that worked, that one would become like 10 times the demand for hoverboard. Okay, anything that smacks of being an easy cure for overeating, I think would be huge, right? Even if it doesn't work, right, it's huge because people give it a shot.
It'd be a Viagra level blockbuster.
Absolutely, yeah. But if it actually worked, it would be huge beyond belief. I mean, it would be huge beyond description, and the demand for it would be unlike the demand you see for much of any of the rest of the things we're talking about tonight. I mean, it would be overwhelming, and it would drive this into being. Now, when I look at this next one, cyber pills that talk to your doctor, it seems to me that that's just a kind of a fine slice off what we've already been talking about. If we're talking about putting sensors in, and we're talking about putting a smartphone in, this is just a kind of a partial step, isn't it?
Right. And in some ways, I'd almost prefer it to be my doctor to be a personal digital assistant in some ways. It's a little less intrusive. If it's my digital assistant, we would basically be treating it like Tony Stark treats Jarvis. Jarvis is smart. Yeah, Jarvis is super helpful, but you know what? I'm the boss, and so I almost would prefer it to be a very smart computer system over phoning your doc every time you eat
well,
something
that's
or
what
smoke
the
a
quantified
cigarette
people,
that's not supposed to.
Yeah, that's what the quantified self people would say, right? It's my information.
Right.
Why do I have to go to somebody else to get it? Why do I have to go, kowtow before some authority to get my own information? I want my information because I want to interact with it, and I want to manage my own health. And there's a line, okay? There are aspects of my health that I think probably better in the hands of a professional. But as you point out, that line can even be blurred with a personal digital assistant. If you've got a really good online doctor, if you've got a really good AI doctor, the time at which it would be necessary to go to an actual human, I mean, that gets pushed more and more remote, doesn't it? And the more information that a person can manage for themselves, I think, that amount becomes that much greater.
Well, if you got a computer system that's like, Watson's great grandchild, okay, something that's Watson version 5.0 or whatever, that's 10 times better than a diagnostician, can diagnose things better than Dr. House, and is absolutely just there to help you and not to judge, because it's just trained not to. It's written not to. It's kind of funny the way again, Tony Stark and Jarvis is so passive aggressive sometimes. It's hilarious. That's as bad as it gets as far as his judgment of on Tony. Throw a little hot rod red into the Iron Man suit. Oh, that what did he say about that? He just passive aggressively said, that's not keeping a low profile, or whatever.
Yeah,
but
right.
maybe our Watsons would be a little bit be a little bit that way, just to kind of stay interesting. But I think
as long as it's not Dr. House, I don't want a virtual Dr. House.
Yeah, we don't. Yeah. That's the thing that made Dr. House as a character on TV so fascinating. But you don't want, unless you really are dying, you don't want him as your doctor, because no bedside manner. He's negative.
You don't want him. You don't want to interact with him day to day around your personal stuff. Or at all in any way, but especially not around your personal stuff. Speaking of personal stuff, let's look at this next one. This is once again, I would say that one is in the ambulance category, right? It's one I don't think people have a strong yen for, but if they decide they want it, it's more one that will sort of creep up on us. How about this? They're calling it Bill Gates Implantable Birth Control. It says the Gates Foundation is supporting an MIT project to create an implantable female contraceptive controlled by an external remote control. Have you ever heard of this? I never heard of this.
I only read about it. About a week or two ago? It's
is that right?
Pretty
new
news. Yeah.
Relatively new. The tiny chip generates small amounts of contraceptive hormone from within the woman's body for up to 16 years. Implantation is no more invasive than a tattoo. So basically, for a tattoo's worth of effort, the woman who takes this treatment gets the equivalent of birth control pill prescription for 16 years. That she can shut off at any time, apparently, that she that she wants to. So I never heard of this before, and obviously I'm not the target audience for this, but to me this would definitely, I think, show up as a like the ambulance. I haven't heard people clamoring for it, but once it arrived, I think it would be something that people would immediately respond to and say, "Boy, that sounds good. That sounds like a pretty good technology." Or am I missing something there?
No, I think that's a fine technology, and one I think that a lot of women would jump on board. It's because it's one less thing to remember every day, right?
Well,
and it's a pretty important thing to forget. If you forget it, and then you could potentially have a problem, coming in 9 months. So, this would be a big deal, I think, and there have been long-term things that women have had before. What did they call it? Where it was like an injection under the arm, and it lasted long-term. But the problem is they no longer do it anymore, because the hormones that were being released were not quite as controlled, and you could end up with a huge dose of these hormones that could give you problems. And so they took that off the market. And gosh, it's right on the tip of my tongue the name of that type of contraception.
Yeah, I don't remember that at all. That's interesting.
Yeah, it was on the market about 10 years ago, and gosh, I forget. But anyway, and women that were going into overseas or something like that in the military, a lot of those ladies were using that, and they're where you're in a situation where you just may not be able to use have birth control handy or whatever. And so that was and they just found that it was not safe. Well, this would be time release electronically. It's that idea plus a circuit in a way. And hey, if it works, awesome. And completely reversible also. So that's cool. Which begs the question, men's birth control pill. I think that that needs to happen. And
there ought to be a male equivalent of this. And then, basically you just put everybody on this when they turn like 13 or whatever, right? I mean, everybody. It just become kind of a standard thing. I'm sorry if I sound like some kind of crazy social engineer or something like that, but wouldn't that address an awful lot of problems if,
You can have
actually, I guess the argument against it is that it then creates this license for people to do whatever they want. And I'm like, well, I suppose, but they wouldn't get pregnant anyway.
It does solve some problems.
Yeah.
So.
Okay. You know what? In the interest of time, we're going to do number 9, and then we're going to swing back and do number 6. If you're tracking through the list with us here, tell us about number 9, Stephen.
I'm sorry, I'm not tracking through the list.
Oh, you're not. For those not tracking, including my co-host, the verified self. This is interesting. Implantables hammer against social norms. They raise privacy issues and even point to larger potential dystopia. This technology could be used to ID every single human being, for example. So they talk about the U.S. military has serious programs afoot to equip soldiers with implanted RFID chips. So they're talking about basically a sort of a built-in ID chip. Yeah, low jack for the.
Well, would
person.
It be low
Okay.
jack, or are we talking? Would it be low jack? Would you be able to track someone from a distance, or is it just basically digital dog tags?
It looks to me like they're kind of skirting that, but I think both applications are possible. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and there you go. That's the division, isn't it? Right? Because you go, well, if it's ID, we carry ID anyway, so why not? That'd be a pretty good way to, it's just like implanting the birth control, right? Implant your ID, and then you don't have to worry. You got it with you. But if it's then this device by which people can keep track of you, that doesn't sound as good, does it?
No.
From a plausibility standpoint, though, I would give this one high plausibility. I don't see people clamoring for this anytime soon. In fact, this one probably fits a model that we haven't discussed as much, but this is one that might kind of sneak up on us, and we might get sort of stuck with, right? That it might be decided for us that we need this. Well,
I could see some applications for this that would be accepted readily. One is soldiers. If you're in the field, and imagine you're in the field and, you want to cut down on friendly fire incidents.
Yep.
If your entire squad is being tracked, and you point your gun and, you point your smart gun in the direction of a team member, it won't fire.
Right.
You could build something like that into into a system to where that's and to me that's doable, and I think it would be readily accepted. But if it's being used by authorities to track civilians, that's not good. And we are. Technology is going to create more and more instances where we just have to be real careful to fight for our privacy rights, and if we don't raise a voice, then we lose it. And once you lose stuff like that, it's hard to get it back. And
yeah, and when you put it in hoverboard terms, okay, this is the anti-hoverboard, because what's the hoverboard? It's cool, and it's all about being free and being able to do things you couldn't do before. This is like the antithesis of cool, and it's about the man keeping an eye on you. It's just it's the anti. I really think it's the anti-hoverboard. Okay, finally, number 6, the brain-computer interface. This one we've kind of skirted around here anyway. I think when we talked about the embedded smartphone, for that really to be any good, you're going to have something pretty close to a brain-computer interface. Now, a team at Brown University called BrainGate is at the forefront of the real-world movement to link human brains directly to computers for a host of uses. As the BrainGate website says, using a baby aspirin-sized array of electrodes implanted into the brain, early research from BrainGate team has shown that the neural signals can be decoded by a computer in real time and used to operate external devices. Of course, we've seen applications of this around prosthetics and in some other settings. I don't see
probably
this one.
The first thing was the cochlear implant. Was one of the first things that machines and brain linked up, and that's been around, believe it or not, since the late 70s in primitive form. And so we've been working on that, and I think that basically the cochlear implant for the eyes is the Geordie LaForge visor. That will be coming very soon, and I have a high expectation that that'll be available when we start getting good at helping people that have various handicaps with brain interfaces. That's the bridge to getting it for everybody. Okay, is curing Geordie LaForge of his blindness so that he can walk around doing all these awesome things. That's once you're able to do that, then eventually that technology gets good enough that everybody wants it, and they do it electively. So. Right now the cochlear implant, in order to have that, they basically disconnect the brain from the ear. And so, you have to be deaf already or they won't do it because if you have any residual hearing, you are losing that to gain the ability of the cochlear implant. So, anyway, that's and so do you want to disconnect your eyes if so that you can see the internet? No. There's lots of room for improvement in this technology before healthy people start using it. So
I think the idea of the non-remedial, non-treatment version of this hasn't really caught on yet. We've seen. Glimpses of it in some science fiction, and we think about it a little bit. It's more of a joke than anything else. I think when there are better treatments for things, when people really are seeing more, when they're hearing more, when there's more interaction going on amongst brains and computers around treating some of these things that need to be treated, the non-medical applications will start to arise. And once people start to get a glimpse of that, I think that will start to create the demand for this. I think this one ultimately will be a hoverboard-style technology, innovation. I think that the people will look at that along the same lines and go, I've totally got to have that. But we're not quite at the point of even realizing what it is enough for people to have made that leap yet. So that one is a coming hoverboard, I would say, technology.
Right.
And we'll see. We'll keep tracking as we get a little closer to that, whether we're getting to the point where people are starting to be aware of the idea and starting to demand it the way maybe they do flying cars. All right, with very little time left, Stephen, what's our music this evening?
Well, it being on the eve of Halloween, I thought we'd do something fun. This is a song that we bring up every time that I want to play something that cracks me up. It's Cave Girls by the Rabinos.
I don't know what that's got to do with Halloween, but I love this song.
If you go to a party, Halloween party tomorrow, and there's a girl dressed up like they described in this song, you'll know.
Of course.
You'll know why. You'll know why I chose this.
Thank you for driving that home. I appreciate that, Stephen. And thank you all for being with us. We'll be back again next week with an all-new show. And until next time, live to see it.
Let's go back to the age of stone, where the saber-toothed tiger and mastodon roam. Turn on the way back machine, time to make the Pleistocene. Cave girls were hot, make you wanna get down to bedrock. Cave girls were hot, every little lady was a stone fox. Reclining on the bearskin rug, rolling around in the slime and mud, the nail and scratch and claw, tell you what made the ice age thaw. Cave girls were hot, make you wanna turn back the clock. Cave girls were hot, every little lady was a stone fox. When 1,000 years BC is right where I wanna be, I'm on a quest for 5. Cave girls gone wild. Cave girls gone wild. Hi, I'm Tommy, 100% Cro-Magnon. My dream woman? Well, she would walk upright and have an opposable thumb.
Some call me Java Man, but you can call me Al. I dig a woman who wears a bone through her hair and crawls around on all fours.
My name is John, and I'm the Neanderthal of the group. I like a woman who has my slippers and favorite drink waiting when I return from the hunt. I guess I'm a little old-fashioned.
Cave girls were hot, make you wanna get down to bedrock. Cave girls were hot, every little lady was a stone fox. Cave girls were hot. Cave girls were hot. So hot. Who is that in a fur bikini? I'll see you guys later. Well, hello. You wanna come up and see my cave painting? Oh, yeah. So hot. Cave girls were hot. So hot. Ow.
Support for this podcast comes from the Utah Office of Tourism, announcing the Four Corners Schools Canyon Country Discovery Center, offering hands-on exhibits, educational tours, and a variety of field-based hiking and rafting adventures. From day trips to week-long adventures throughout the Colorado Plateau. Nearby attractions include Canyonlands National Park, Hoverboard National Monument, Natural Bridges National Monument, Monument Valley Tribal Park in Cedar Mesa. FourCornersSchool.org. Support for this podcast comes from the Utah Office of Tourism, announcing the Four Corners Schools Canyon Country Discovery Center, offering hands-on exhibits, educational tours, and a variety of field-based hiking and rafting adventures. From day trips to week-long adventures throughout the Colorado Plateau. Nearby attractions include Canyonlands National Park, Hoverboard National Monument, Natural Bridges National Monument, Monument Valley Tribal Park in Cedar Mesa. FourCornersSchool.org.